So I want to start with really the most common factor, which is going to be food choices, specifically calories, but we can also look at food volume. And when we really get into the weeds of like macronutrients, micronutrients, electrolytes, minerals, sodium intake. Sodium is crucial, and it's not something that you should eliminate or heavily restrict. That's not needed in order to lose body fat. But it does help our body maintain fluid balance. And when we eat higher amounts of when we eat higher amounts of sodium, our body's going to naturally hold on to extra water temporarily. Now, if you can think back to the last time that you had soup, any kind of noodle dish, honestly, really any kind of takeout, because takeout, they want to sell good food, and like sodium is going to make food taste better. If you go out to eat to restaurants, even if you're having still a very clean meal, and I say clean, I just mean like very whole food dense. When you're looking at these meals, like it's very likely that these foods, that these dishes have higher degrees of sodium. And I think oftentimes people will get lost into this trap where they'll be like, well, I'm just not going to go out to eat. I'm going to make all of the foods that I desire, that I'm craving at home. That way I can control sodium intake, which I think is smart. Like, I think that's one way to do it. But where this can sneak up on you is when you make certain dishes. So when you use different seasonings on your protein, so like taco seasoning, or like we've been doing like a Mediterranean seasoning, like a shawarma seasoning, and you use it not realizing that like there are like 2 to 3 grams of sodium in these little packets. Another big one that I see, especially when people get sick, is they'll make at-home soup. I don't know why I said it like that. I guess English is slowly coming to me this morning. They'll make soup at home, and they'll be like, okay, well, it's low sodium. It's 30% less than a standard can or, standard box, whatever it is. And they're not really paying attention to the fact that still, if they are to consume this is 5-6x the amount of sodium that they would have in their normal meal. So is it something that you need to be like really strict about tracking sodium with? It depends. Like someone who is very sensitive to scale fluctuations, and if, we kind of know that like it could be related to sodium, I think a lot of people find peace of mind by understanding where these fluctuations come from. And when we can like just, pull the trees back, pull the branches back, I don't know. When we can pull the branches back and really just make sense of like, okay, like this is happening. There's a strong correlation when you eat high sodium, and this could be in the case of eating a meal at home that you make. We tend to see scale weight go up 1 to 2 pounds the next day, even if calories are controlled. So then we have to look at total calories. And this isn't going to be a podcast on adherence because I have like a dozen of those already, but I'll just say that if you're not being accurate with your tracking, if food reporting is not high, or you're guesstimating, or even if you're going out, you're getting kava, you're getting Chipotle, you're getting Sweetgreen, like you have to understand there's going to be some discrepancy in the food that you eat. And I wouldn't necessarily think of it, especially in the case where like you are not like a competitor or you are not strictly dieting. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong by making a swap substitution and still tracking it, but you have to know that it is a little bit of a gamble. There's a dice roll that accompanies eating out. So if you're not seeing the progress that you're wanting to see, and you're having a lot of meals out or a lot of meals that are guesstimated, maybe, your partner, they're also prepping food and they're not being super strict with like the oil they're using or the amounts that they're tracking. It's just something to pay attention to. Now, that aside, outside of like global caloric intake, we really have to consider macronutrient breakdown. And this is something that I just had a conversation with a new client because she realized that she was actually mistracking her carbs. She was tracking net carbs, and what I wanted her to do, and what I want all my clients to do, is track total carbs. Now, when she made the switch, she was tracking her net carbs, and then she went down to total carbs. So inadvertently, there was a decrease in her carb intake. What she saw is that scale weight went down pretty much overnight because it was a pretty big change in carb intake at that point. Now, we agreed that she was going to do a high day, which we were going to go back to the previous carb intake, which I think it was like 70 more grams of carbs. Now, she came to me the next day because we had our weekly call. So for some clients, I actually get on the phone with them or a Zoom call. And it's just like for added accountability. It is something that I offer with my coaching. And we get on our call and she's like, I'm really bummed because what I'm seeing is that now my weight is higher. And I was really hoping that this high day wouldn't make me gain fat. And I believe it did. And I was like, whoa, hold on, like we have to look at like total calories. Like, yes, they were higher, but were they high enough to actually cause fat gain? And that's where I kind of posed it to her. I'm like, we really have to consider what was the macronutrient split prior to, and what was it the day that was her high day. I was like, look at the carb intake. So when we consider like every gram of carb, you are going to store 3 to 4 grams of water. You're going to actually increase like overall volume in your body. And this can manifest on the scale as a 1 to 2, a 3-pound increase if we're talking about big swings. And this was something that she kind of posed to me early on, in our coaching. She's like, should I be calorie cycling? Should I have days that are a little bit lower? Or should I just have constant calories? And the question I asked her was like, well, does it bother you when you see these fluctuations in the scale weight? Because if it does, I'm going to recommend that even if we do calorie cycle, we don't do great variations in the carb intake, because that will absolutely manifest in addition to other lifestyle factors that can drive weight fluctuations. And last point I want to make around food intake is foods that contain higher fiber amounts, or even just like high volume foods. So I've had it happen where clients have come to me, they've done complete overhauls with their diets. They've gone from eating like very calorically dense foods, but then we go into a fat loss phase and they're like, okay, like I'm really worried about satiety around hunger. I'm going to have a ton of veggies, and overnight their fiber intake goes from maybe 20 to 30 grams to 60 to 70, and they actually find that this now causes them to have less frequent bowel movements. They're also just like holding more lower abdomen bloat. And this isn't bloat in the sense of like an inflammatory reaction. It truly is just GI weight. So key takeaways from the food domain of weight fluctuations is you have to consider if you're eating out, was there a discrepancy in actual calories? Was there a discrepancy in sodium? If you made the food yourself, same thing. Did you mistrack accidentally, unintentionally? It doesn't mean like you did it deviantly. It just means like, was there an opportunity for more calories to kind of find their way into your food? Are you calorie cycling? Is there a giant shift in macronutrient profile? Or did you make this like vast switch in your food selection, now causing your fiber intake to go up overnight? If it's any of these, I wouldn't panic. And I would say like a way that we can like test this is revert back to what you did prior to and see if the scale weight goes down. Don't panic. It is temporary. It's usually water weight. And a good rule of thumb, and I guess I probably should have said this at the beginning, is like if scale weight comes on rapidly, typically isn't fat gain. If it comes off rapidly, definitely not fat gain. That's like a double confirmation. Water weight, on the other hand, doesn't hang around for 6 weeks. If it's sticking, probably not water.